Our next question comes from our friend GamerX, who wants to know, should we use practiced, predetermined combinations in a boxing match? And he's asked me this question a lot, and I've given this question a lot of thought, and the answer is yes and no, and sometimes, and maybe, and it depends.
It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Thanks to the channel sponsor NoGiBJJGear.com. Don't forget to use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. Now on with the show. To answer this question, I developed a pre-programmed combination based on what I believe were sound principles. Throw a 1-2 to get your opponent's guard up, take a slip step to the right, and then attack where he is open. Follow up with a kick. In theory, this combination makes sense because it's based on a common response that a lot of people will give you a high percentage of the time. However, I will use this combination in a sparring session with my student Jason, and as you will see, a significant percentage of the time he responds differently than simply bringing his guard up to block the initial 1-2 punch. That's not to say that this combination or combinations like it don't have value. Elite level strikers generally land about 30% of their strikes. So if I can land this combination 1 time out of 3, I'll consider it a huge success. A good fighter cannot afford to be married to a specific movement, and you have to be prepared to bail on it and move on and modify as the dynamics change. For the sake of this video, I specifically tried this combination 6 times in a 2-minute kickboxing round. Let's see what happened. I feint the right to set up my 1-2. Jason, savvy to this, parries my right hand and counters with a kick. I attempt to catch it just a little too late. The second time I wise up and don't use a setup to set up my setup. The setup works, Jason brings up his guard to deflect. I take a step that's just a bit too shallow. Jason squares up and takes the second right hand on his guard. I attempt to throw the left kick. Jason circles to my right, evading the kick entirely. Fixing my footwork from last time, I come much closer to Jason. Little falling step on the right hand. His guard comes up. So far, so good. I create a reverse collar tie. This is different. This is something you can't do on a heavy bag. This is a frame that will prevent Jason from squaring up with me. Now that I'm off the center line, I can successfully fire my right hand through the hole in Jason's guard. But I don't get the liver kick, and here's why. Because I shift my weight back. Fundamental footwork mistake. Have to make a little hop. And by that time, Jason fades back. I attempt a high kick instead, but it lands on his guard harmlessly. In the 4th attempt, I throw my 1-2. Jason's guard comes up. All going according to plan. I shift to the right, fire off my second right hand. Jason fades back, avoiding it, but he does not avoid the left kick. Okay, we'll call that a success, but this is very important. Even if you land your combination, it doesn't mean you're in safe water yet, because Jason just fired back and landed a right leg kick himself. I know what you're thinking. That didn't look anything like the combination you practiced on the bag. I know, exactly. I fire off my jab before I can even get the right hand out. Jason already counters and then fires a body shot. Boom! So I've got to adjust my game plan. My weight's now on my back leg, so I fire off a teep to create some distance. Like I said before, you cannot afford to be married to a specific movement pattern. If it's not working, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. I throw my 1-2, Jason's guard comes up, but I feel him fading back, so instead of putting stock in a second right hand, I immediately throw a left kick, connect to the body, and follow up with some linear attacks down the center line. Before making this video, I made it a point to develop a combination that already wasn't part of my muscle memory. This isn't something that I normally use while sparring. I wanted something I was unfamiliar with, and so I tried to think in terms of principles. For example, when you throw the 1-2, often, not always as we saw, but often, your opponent will bring up his guard to stop that 1-2. So I thought, how do we capitalize on that? Well, if he is standing in front of you with his arms up in front, step off the center line and fire a second right hand through the hole if his guard is still up, which it probably is if you're attacking the head, then you can kick the body. Seems to make sense. But what makes sense in our mind doesn't always play out that way in real life, because you have to understand there's always a second person involved in a fight. So there is no substitute for experience. So try out your combinations on the bag like this, think them through logically, etc. But ultimately you have to try them out with real people. So as I always say, thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.